In the waning days of 1942, as the chill of winter gripped the Eastern Front, whispers began to snake through the streets of Germany. The invincible Sixth Army under General Friedrich Paulus was encircled at Stalingrad, a name that would soon become synonymous with catastrophe. The German people, fed a steady diet of triumphant headlines since the war's outset, struggled to reconcile this with their narrative of inevitable victory. Joseph Goebbels, the Reich's master propagandist, orchestrated a somber German Christmas, cloaked in austerity and unyielding resolve. Yet, by Christmas 1944, the facade had crumbled. Berlin, once the gleaming heart of the Third Reich, lay in ruins under relentless Allied bombs. The city's 3 million inhabitants endured a existence marked by scarcity, terror, and dark humor that masked their despair. Jokes circulated bitterly. Be practical. Gift a coffin this year. Scrawled messages on bombed-out walls directed loved ones to new shelters, while Nazi posters threatened death to looters amid the debris. The air raids were merciless, transforming daily life into a nocturnal vigil. Berliners spent more hours in cramped blue-lit bunkers than in their beds, clutching cardboard suitcases filled with meager rations and thermoses of weak ersatz coffee. Overcrowding was rampant. The city's shelters could house only a fraction of its population, leading to suffocating conditions where the air grew thick with sweat and fear. Luminous paint on ceilings provided faint guidance during blackouts, but the acronym LSR, for Luftschutzraum, Air Raid Shelter, was cynically reinterpreted as Lernt schnell Russisch, learn Russian quickly. Greetings shifted from Heil Hitler to Bleib übrig, survive, a grim acknowledgement of the encroaching doom. Propaganda fueled paranoia about the Bolshevik hordes from the east, recounting alleged atrocities in Nemmersdorf, where Red Army troops reportedly raped and murdered civilians in October 1944. These tales, amplified by Goebbels' machinery, instilled a visceral dread. The Soviets were coming, and mercy would be scarce. As 1945 dawned, the Eastern Front teetered on collapse. General Ivan Danilovich Chernyakhovsky unleashed a ferocious assault on East Prussia on January 13th, shattering German defenses with overwhelming artillery and infantry waves. Soviet troops, hardened by years of Nazi barbarity, were exhorted to show no quarter. You are in the lair of the fascist beast. The Germans mounted fierce resistance, but by January 24th, Königsberg, East Prussia's historic capital, loomed under siege. To the south, Marshal Konstantin Rokossovsky's forces sliced through, isolating the region. German General Georg Hans Reinhardt's pleas for reinforcements fell on deaf ears. Hitler, fixated on his Ardennes offensive in the west, dismissed the warnings. Gauleiter Erich Koch, East Prussia's Nazi overlord, bungled evacuations, prioritizing his escape while sending refugee trains into harm's way. Chaos ensued. Blizzards turned roads into frozen graveyards, and panicked civilians fled westward in horse-drawn carts, only to face strafing aircraft and marauding troops. The Red Army's advance unearthed horrors that fueled their fury. In villages like Yanovska concentration camp in Ukraine, soldiers discovered shallow graves brimming with emaciated corpses, hands bound, skulls shattered. Testimonies from survivors painted a nightmare of Nazi sadism. Camp Commander Obersturmführer Wilhaus and his wife shooting prisoners for sport, hurling children into the air as targets for their daughter's amusement. Soviet propaganda seized these images, broadcasting them via newspapers, radio, and frontline agitators. Kill the Germans, avenge the Hitlerites. As troops crossed into German soil, the contrast stunned them: pristine farms, stocked pantries, blooming gardens against the scorched earth of their homeland. Jealousy mingled with rage. Why do they live like this while our villages burn? Looting erupted, valuables were stripped, homes torched. But the vengeance was personal and visceral, extending to civilians. Rapes became epidemic, a weapon of retribution untethered from command. In East Prussia, Pomerania, and Silesia, estimates suggest 1.4 million women suffered assaults, with victims ranging from girls as young as 8 to elderly women in their 80s. Anthony Beever's research documents the scale. In Berlin alone, at least 100,000 women were raped, with 10,000 deaths from suicide, botched abortions, or injuries. Soviet records and eyewitness accounts reveal gang rapes in public view, often fueled by alcohol looted from cellars. One NKVD report from East Prussia described widespread destruction and a massive migration of German civilians, with 8.5 million fleeing between January and mid-February 1945. Bodies lined roadsides, victims of marches, exposure, or executions. A Soviet junior sergeant later reflected, "We wanted to hurt them, to see their tears." Propaganda, like Ilya Ehrenberg's writings, break the racial pride of these Germanic women, incited the violence, though Ehrenberg later disavowed excesses. Berlin civilians braced for the storm. By late January, air raid sirens wailed nightly, refugees streamed in with tales of savagery, and Hungary's defection signaled the front's unraveling. Railroad workers whispered truths the high command ignored. The Red Army was closing in. Many tuned to forbidden BBC broadcasts for unfiltered news, risking Gestapo reprisals. Hopes flickered that the Soviets would target only Nazis and SS, but Goebbels' broadcast dashed them. Desperation bred resignation. Some stockpiled cyanide, others clung to wonder weapon myths. Public transport groaned under the strain. Workers slept at factories, and families sheltered displaced kin. Goebbels branded unauthorized evacuation desertion, while SS patrols executed deserters on sight. Hangings from lampposts served as warnings. Marshal Ivan Konev's First Ukrainian Front surged forward, capturing Krakow and Lodz by January 19th. The 17th Army's remnants fled to the Oder River, but Konev's tanks outpaced them. Marshal Georgy Zhukov's First Belarusian Front raced toward Berlin, halted briefly by Stalin to coordinate with Rokossovsky. Zhukov's forces pierced through Brandenburg, encountering scant opposition. Polish units, burning for vengeance after Warsaw's destruction, matched Soviet ferocity. By February 23rd, Posen fell, and Soviet bridgeheads on the Oder near Kustrin placed Berlin within artillery range, 60 miles away. The city's defenses crumbled, civilians scavenged amid ruins, morale plummeted. The final agony began April 20th, 1945, Hitler's 56th birthday, celebrated with Soviet artillery fireworks from Zhukov's guns. The Red Banner newspaper proclaimed, "Our soldiers are in Berlin's streets." Shells rained down, turning the capital into an inferno. Berlin's defender, General Helmuth Weidling, mustered 45,000 troops, Wehrmacht, SS, and ill-trained Volkssturm militiamen, against 1.5 million Soviets. Street-by-street fighting ensued, but numerical superiority prevailed. Hitler, sequestered in the Führer bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery, grew increasingly unhinged. His appearance shocked visitors. Trembling hands, stooped posture, a shadow of the once charismatic leader. Paranoia reigned. He distrusted generals, executing perceived traitors. On April 22nd, he ranted about betrayal, ordering impossible counterattacks. As Soviets closed in, he commanded Berlin's destruction, bridges blown, food stores torched, subways flooded, drowning thousands in shelters. The Reichstag, symbol of Nazi power, fell on April 30th after brutal assaults. Soviet Sergeant Mikhail Minin hoisted the red banner atop its dome, an iconic image of triumph. Hitler, learning of Mussolini's lynching, wed Eva Braun and dictated his will, blaming international Jewry. He ingested cyanide and shot himself. Bodies burned in the garden. Goebbels followed suit, poisoning his family. Berlin surrendered May 2nd, its streets a graveyard of rubble and corpses. Victory unleashed pandemonium. Soviet soldiers, euphoric, looted with abandon. Watches, bicycles, valuables stripped. Celebrations devolved into drunken rampages. Alcohol flowed from abandoned cellars, fueling excesses. Discipline evaporated. Political officers struggled to rein in troops. Rapes surged. Women dragged from shelters, assaulted in ruins or before families. Estimates vary. 100,000 to 1 million in Berlin alone. But hospital records show surging abortions and venereal diseases. One NKVD report noted uninterrupted chain of looting and rape from the fourth day post-surrender. Yet, amidst horror, kindness flickered. Some soldiers shared bread with children or protected families. A telephone operator, Junior Sergeant Ratkin, recalled shame at a grenade-placed suicide but admitted initial rage. We wanted their tears. Motivations were multifaceted. Soviet troops, survivors of Leningrad siege, 900,000 dead. Babi Yar massacres and 27 million compatriot losses viewed Germans through vengeance's lens. Propaganda like Ehrenberg's Kill the Germans and discoveries of camps like Majdanek, extermination site for 78,000, inflamed hatred. Alcohol lowered inhibitions. Patriarchal norms saw enemy women as spoils. Collective punishment prevailed. Every German bore Nazi guilt. War's dehumanization, desensitization to death, enabled brutality. Stalin dismissed complaints. A soldier who's crossed thousands of kilometers through blood and fire must have fun with a woman. Women adapted desperately. Disguises proliferated. Faces smeared with ash, hair shorn, layers to hide figures. Pretending illness, typhus or venereal diseases, deterred some. Hiding in attics, cellars, or ruins became routine. Groups formed for safety, barricading doors. Bribery, jewelry, food, bought reprieve. Some sought protector officers for consensual exchanges, as in A Woman in Berlin. The anonymous author, raped repeatedly, chose a major for security, trading intimacy for supplies. Sleeping for food, she wrote, navigating survival's moral gray. Community watches alerted to patrols. Appeals to compassion occasionally worked. Consequences were devastating. Pregnancies soared. Berlin's health offices approved 995 abortions in Neukölln from June 1945 to 1946. Victims citing rape by Mongolian soldiers. Propaganda-fueled racism. Stigma silenced survivors. Families shunned them. Husbands divorced for dishonor. Children born of rapes, estimated 5,000 in Berlin, faced abandonment, high mortality, 90% infant death rate amid famine. Venereal diseases ravaged. Untreated syphilis spread. Trauma lingered. Suicide spiked. Psychological scars bred isolation. Social fabric tore. Trust eroded. Families fractured. Allied forces weren't innocent. U.S. troops committed approximately 11,000 rapes in Germany. Lilly estimate, peaking post-Normandy. French colonial units assaulted hundreds in Stuttgart and Freudenstadt. British incidents were fewer, often by displaced persons. Motivations mirrored Soviets: power, entitlement, alcohol. Authorities minimized, blaming minorities. U.S. African Americans faced disproportionate trials. Overall, 860,000 rapes by all allies. Gebhardt, though debated. The legacy endures, a taboo chapter, unearthed in works like A Woman in Berlin, republished 2003. It challenges victor narratives, exposing war's universal barbarity. German identity grappled with victimization amid guilt. Soviet denial persisted until Glasnost. Today, memorials and studies honor survivors, reminding that liberation's light cast long shadows of suffering.